Hey everyone, and welcome to Backseat Sports. I'm Josh, that's Caleb, and today we are answering the hottest, spiciest questions you guys submitted this week. So first Q&A on the channel, and we have some really good questions actually, like really all over the spectrum of Husker football, college football, and more. So we have a lot to get into. Caleb, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Excited to answer you guys' questions.
Yes, sir.
A lot of people are cooking up great stuff in the comments. I'm excited to dive into it.
I mean, dude, the first one here is from Dalton Soper, and we have a few questions like this. Also, Ben Jackson asked one as well. Basically, best case scenario and worst case scenario for the season. And like, what could you see more likely to happen? 12-0 or 0-12?
I mean, I think it's pretty obvious seeing how we've been on the under 6 wins here for the last 6 seasons. So, I mean, I think I have to go 0-12, but you know, I'm hoping for the best. But 0-12 is more likely. That
would require a loss at both Northern Illinois and Louisiana Tech, though. I genuinely think that's less likely than going 12-0. But really, I think the more interesting question is what's best and worst case scenario in general. Without like really looking at it and diving into it, what's your like gut reaction to like best and worst case scenario?
Obviously, the best case scenario is you win all 12 games. Okay. But I mean, in a realistic world, I just don't know.
Like, what would you give like a 5% chance at happening? You know?
I don't know, like 10, like
10-2, like a loss to Michigan, a loss to Wisconsin or something like that, and you're beating like, you know, Maryland,
or
Iowa,
anyone else,
Michigan State, yeah, Illinois, Minnesota. I mean, I don't know. Realistically, any sort of like realistic best case scenario, I think, is 9 wins. And then realistic worst case scenario is probably 3. I mean, you have the Northwestern game. I mean, someone could argue 2, depending on how good Colorado ends up being. But you've got the Northwestern game, the Colorado game. So I think 3 is probably the absolute worst case scenario. But more than likely, we're going to end up in the middle somewhere. Oh, Matthew Vaughn asked a really good question here. And it's like he's asked, what's your favorite Husker game you've ever watched? And he says his is the Colorado Alex Henry kick. Obviously not Ndamukong Suh. I mean, that's a good choice. What's yours?
Oh, man, that is so tough.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question.
I'd say like one that I was like in the stadium for, like the Michigan State comeback just in most recently.
Wow, a Mike Riley memory.
A Mike Riley game. It was just, you know, that was like freshman year in the bleachers in the student section. And so, and like not everybody stayed. So it was like a lot of people left the stadium. So like only like some people were left there. Yeah. Like it was an absolute party for the people that were. So it was a great time. So I definitely, it's hard because there's so many great games.
Oh, my word.
That one's just a ton of fun.
Man, the first 3 that came to mind, and actually Pullout King also has a favorite Skurs memory question, so we can kind of maybe answer both favorite game and favorite memory if they're different. Ooh, so I'll actually answer both. So the favorite memory would be for some reason I love this one. It was the Alamo Bowl win against Michigan where they almost had like the
terrifying game.
The pitches at the end to basically almost come back and win it. And I just remember like being terrified. I was like maybe like 2005 or 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was, I just remember being terrified watching it. It was, we had a big party with a bunch of friends at a friend's house. And I remember just being so hyped that we ended up winning the game and beating Michigan. And then favorite game, the first 2 that came to mind would have been the Ohio State comeback, the Levante David, Rex Burkhead, insane juke. Like that game would probably be up there because I was there for that game as well. And then maybe the Northwestern Hail Mary because I had really good tickets to that game, and just come on, I mean, it's a Hail Mary.
Yeah, I mean, I always been think like the McNeese State, like I was there watching that one with the Amir Abdullah run. Like it was a horrible game, but then the run was so much fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. My favorite memory is always the next one, baby. I'm always excited for the next season, for the next time. No, I mean, it's just so hard to pick because there's just so many like fun ones.
Oh, another great Husker memory for me would be my dad and I went to the Michigan State Nebraska game in Michigan State where we like lost. It was like really cold, and what is that, like 20? It was Bo Pelini's last year maybe. And
so
we got out of the car, and Bo Pelini's brother, not Carl, the other brother, was like right next to us. So we ended up tailgating with the Pelinis. So that was really cool.
Nice. That is fun.
But yeah, okay. So Blaine Spulak asks, do you see a world where Rahmir Johnson could find a role in the offense this year? And do you think Tommi Hill can beat up Malcolm Harzog, kind of coming back to cornerback, which has been the rumor that Tommi Hill's moving back to corner.
I don't see that big of a spot for Rahmir Johnson. I mean, he can do some pass catching stuff, but obviously that drop sits heavily in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, new coaching staff.
Yes, exactly. So I think they all get somewhat of a clean slate.
Yeah.
We've always, lots of news has come out about everything.
No, I mean, I agree.
I would say I think Malcolm Harzog probably is got a starter role. I don't think Tommi Hill's beating him out. Just from what I've seen from both of them, I think Tommi Hill's faster than Malcolm, but I think Malcolm's just got the better football game as a whole.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Tommi Hill obviously has the athletic prowess to be great, but I mean, he wasn't last year. He was really bad. And I think more of it came from like technical play than any sort of athleticism or even like maybe even his skill as a cornerback, but it just seemed like he was never on the right page.
His awareness was low.
His awareness, yeah. So I agree. I think Harzog, based off how he finished the season, it only makes sense that Harzog keeps his role going into this year. But you never know with a new staff. So Aaron Mason asked, what do you guys do for work? And he basically asked, like, if Rhule fails, is all hope lost for Nebraska, or would there still be a chance if in a world where Rhule got fired after 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, well, I'm a teacher and golf coach, and obviously this channel, boys,
and a Nebraska expert.
Yes, multiple years in a row now. Best predicting the Huskers win losses for the season. That's
okay,
the most accurate analyst.
we didn't actually. I don't think if we talked about this, maybe we did talk about it, but Caleb was the only analyst last year of any Husker football outlet anywhere to predict Nebraska to go less than 6 wins. So you got to give credit where credit's due for a really depressing prediction, but good work.
Thank you. That's all I got to say.
Yes. And so, yeah, for me, well, actually, I was doing full-time YouTube in the Call of Duty space. And there was actually another question about my history from Connor Schleitzman, who asked about my background and how I got started. And so I was a full-time YouTuber doing Call of Duty esports content as both with the channel here. And I actually just recently decided to kind of step away from the esports side of things. And I was working in esports and decided to go get a master's degree in Germany. So I just moved to Germany, which is why I moved. And so I'm currently getting a master's degree in Germany. So those nighttime games last season, those were killer because the 5 a.m.
Backstreet Sports went global this last season. Oh my
goodness, that was killer. So the 5 a.m. like finishes were killing me. But when it comes to Matt Rhule, I mean, I wouldn't say all hope would be lost, but man, having back to back, like basically coaching failures in Nebraska would not be a good look. But I mean, we've seen programs rise from the grave before. I mean, like Illinois or Minnesota over the last like 5 years. I mean, programs can rise from the grave if they find the right coach.
I mean, it'll hurt us for sure, but I do think like any sign of life or any sign that Nebraska becomes decent, I think like it'll still very quickly come back. Like I still don't believe that there's a chance that we ever just drop off the face. Like I think we'll always be prepared to be a dominant program. There's too much love.
So we had a handful of questions about Casey and Jeff Sims and basically who's going to start. So Samuel, Tim, and Gage all asked about that. So essentially, what's your gut reaction currently to who's going to start week 1 against Minnesota?
I mean, I still think Casey's the guy.
Man, it's tough.
I think he's a great passer. I think with a better O-line next year, I think he's definitely gives us the best upside. But, I think Sims is going to have a lot of time this offseason with Casey being out with the injury.
That's the thing.
And so,
I mean, if Casey wasn't
it'll be close.
Hurt, then I'd feel really confident saying Casey. But again, new coaching staff, and we're going to probably keep saying this, new coaching staff. And so, and they brought in Jeff Sims, the guy they targeted in the transfer portal. And so inevitably he has the advantage when it comes to like interest from the coaching staff in theory. And not to mention that he's going to, like you said, have all of spring to practice and get those snaps. And so I genuinely, at first, my gut reaction was Casey, but I actually think my gut reaction might be Sims, even though I think Casey might be the better quarterback. But Sims provides the safety of the running game, and you know that he's going to have those legs to give you that baseline offense. So it just depends on what the coaching staff's interested in trying to do here.
Yeah.
Another similar quarterback question. Kyle asked, do you think Richard Torres and Heinrich Haarberg have any chance of playing this year? No. I mean,
Not a
Torres is
chance.
at least interesting because he was a recruit.
I mean, if our quarterback gets to the 5th in the depth chart, it's a rough season.
Yeah.
If Heinrich Hartberg is seeing the field.
Yeah, Torres is interesting just because he was a freshman last year, coming in this year. Yeah. So, I mean, at least it's interesting with Torres, but it would be really surprising with Jeff Sims coming in. Okay, so Joe Reeve asks a handful of interesting questions here, but we had a handful of questions about PrimeTime and Colorado, and basically he asked, "Can PrimeTime keep the Big Red out of Boulder?" And Cornborn Mike asks, basically, what do you think about Matt Rhule versus Deion? And what are your thoughts on Deion and the expectations and who walks away with the W?
Hey, well, not a chance they're going to keep the fan base out of Boulder. That
tickets are already like $250 or something. It's insane.
Yeah. I just looked because I thought about going. Although it'll be a ruckus environment.
Yeah.
So, travel in groups, Husker fans.
What's your gut on PrimeTime though? Over the next 3 or 4 years, do you think Colorado's in a better spot?
I think he can be good. Only time will tell. It's a big jump. It's a big jump. Only prime time will tell. Again, he had a wealth of talent at Jackson State, like a little bit.
Yeah, comparative to what the competition was. Yeah, no doubt.
But granted, I think that the pack is in a pretty weak spot. Mm-hmm. So in this years to come, especially with there's been rumors too of Oregon coming to the Big Ten now,
and obviously with the other teams already leaving, so it's like, my goodness, there's opportunity.
So I think there's a vacuum that can be filled with PrimeTime and his giant.
But when it comes to this game,
the Huskers got this. There's never a doubt.
Yeah,
there's never a doubt.
Agreed. So Joe Reeve asks, what are you looking forward to the most next season? So is there a narrative or something along those lines that you're most excited to see?
Winning more than 4 games. That's what I'm excited about. Hopefully, going to a bowl game. Again, just not dealing with Scott Frost's antics. I think I'm looking forward to this next season. After like 5 years of just like his horrible interviews, him looking just genuinely unprepared, and just the lack of care and effort as seasons just went along, the excuses. I'm just excited to not hear any of those.
I'm definitely looking forward to not hearing Caleb rant about Scott Frost. That's probably the most exciting thing. But outside of that,
it's been 3 years of ranting about Scott Frost.
I would say Malachi Coleman, assuming he sees the field, because the hype is there. So basically, Stephen Lang asks, "What do you guys think what is Rhule bringing that allows Nebraska to flip the script? Like, what is the X factor for Matt Rhule?"
I think again that he's used to dealing in a professional manner of a big program, like in the NFL. Like, it's much more business-like, and I think bringing some of that to Nebraska will be good.
Well, the stability of a head coach too. I mean, again, you have the youth and the energy and more energy than Scott Frost, combined with the experience of multiple programs, almost like of Mike Riley. So we haven't had this nice combination of a manager and a charismatic leader in one. And so I think inherently, at least that energy, and we've seen it with the interest in recruiting that he's already garnering here with the 2024 class, that it has potential. So that upside in recruiting is probably the biggest X factor really in the long term.
Yeah, and then hopefully, again, I think the X's and O's are going to shake themselves out on the field. Obviously, I don't think many guys get the NFL job without really knowing their stuff. And so I think, like, again, that Mike Riley too, like to Josh's point, like he knew his stuff, he knew his X's and O's, but it just it came down to the whole package of Mike Riley didn't work out so much.
So Javier Estrada asks, basically he says, what do you guys think of the coaching staff and their recruiting ability? And basically asking us to predict, are they going to have a top 10 to 15 class before they leave Nebraska?
Well, if we get Dylan. Yes.
Well, there is one obvious elephant in the room here. Yeah, it's like, if you get Dylan Raiola, then yes, the answer is easy. But if you had to put $1 million right now, will Nebraska pull a top 10 class before Matt Rhule leaves?
10. 15, I feel like that's doable. 10 is difficult.
10 stuff.
Again, I don't know.
I'm going to go with
It's just hard. It's just hard. I don't think so.
15,
I think
like you said, 15 feels much more reasonable.
But top 10, I mean, that's a 5-star, and maybe 2.
Yeah.
It's probably,
Agreed.
That's hard.
No,
like,
it's
that's
really
something
tough.
Nebraska hasn't done.
Okay, so Nick Swanson asks, what are 3 hot takes for the season? What do you got? Just give one, and then maybe we can just give 3 in total.
I think Nebraska will have more wins than Iowa and Minnesota next year. That is one of my hot takes.
Classic Nebraska hot take right there. I mean, is there any reasoning, or is it just no? It's just gonna happen.
I mean, PJ Fleck loses his safety blanket of a quarterback that he had for 25 years.
Yeah, true. Yeah, he's had him since infancy. Yeah,
that man is older than us, like legitimately, and was still playing quarterback. So I'm happy that he's gone. So, and then Iowa, the wheels are just falling off.
One time they're gonna be terrible, no doubt.
Yeah, it's gonna happen.
So I mean, I think an interesting hot take. Malachi Coleman. I think he's gonna lead Nebraska in receiving. Is that a really hot take? It's interesting at least. Obviously with Marcus Washington there and the seniors and the leadership transferring in with some of those guys that we got in the class this year, like Billy Kemp and Josh Fleeks and those guys. Obviously, and you still have like Xavier Betts there too, so and Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. So I would say at least is a little bit of a hot take when it comes to him actually working out as a player. But yeah, Malachi Coleman, you heard it here first, is going to lead Nebraska in receiving this year.
I mean, that's a lot for task for a freshman too. I'm trying to think like maybe Stanley Morgan led as a freshman, maybe DeMornay Pearson-L.
Wandale?
Those are the only ones. Yeah,
maybe. I don't know because it
total yards probably if you had the rushing and the receiving.
Yeah. I'll also go with this one because I mean the talent was there though. AJ Allen will outrush Anthony Grant this year. That's pretty spicy. I mean,
nice.
Who knows what would have happened last year if he didn't get hurt? I mean, it could have happened. I guess
we have a better team.
But yeah, exactly. So AJ Allen, the talent's there. He's gonna outrush Anthony Grant. Brando Sports World asks, basically, what positions are going to be the strong points for this team and what's one's going to be the weakest point for this team this season? Strongest quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, we got 2 deep as long as they stay and one of them doesn't transfer out. Like, thank goodness, because again, our offensive line's still not going to be a strong point for us. So
no. Will it be the weakest though?
Yeah, yes.
But still, D-line could be the weakest.
Yeah, our both fronts are,
because you're basically relying right now on 3 transfers probably starting, depending on what happens with Nash, Hutmacher, and really Stephen Wynn, Blaze Gunderson. So I mean, right now it's projected at least that MJ Sherman starts, Elijah Judy, and Chief Borders. So I mean, that's a lot of transfers who aren't that proven of players starting on your defensive line.
Yeah, it's more on the win level, and. We'll see. You
could argue the secondary as our best group. Obviously, I think quarterback's the safest bet, no doubt. But I mean, you have Quentin Newsome there, and we saw the potential of Buford, and Miles Farmer got better as the season going along, and then Malcolm Harzog's breakout, and you can include Isaac Gifford in that, and so that's a pretty solid group of guys.
Yeah, I definitely say the secondary will be a strong point, which it feels like it has been now it hasn't been like our weakest link in the team for a long time now. Not since the Mike Riley days.
Exactly. So then Joe Reeves asked some interesting questions here. A few thoughts. Essentially, he asked about Elijah Judy, which we already just talked about. And then he asked about the potential philosophy of Matt Rhule and Satterfield's approach to this offense and our thoughts on them trying to go more old school and establish this running game and potentially our thoughts on how their philosophy is approaching right now and maybe clock management as well.
I mean, I think the whole Big Ten West plays an old school style of run the ball type of game. So, I mean, I think that I think it'd be good first to fit in with it somewhat. And then like with a good basis of that, again, I think that we'll have the better skill positions because we're a more talented team. So I think if we can establish that and be able to do that better than our opponents, because Ohio State, they have the great one back system too, but they also just have everything else. And so I think that starting with that point and building out and up, I think is a good philosophy to have.
Right. I mean, he has the right talking points, building from the offensive line and starting there. I mean, like that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
But like, it's always easier said than done. And so, yeah, I'm right with you. So Michael Johnson asks, the GOAT, who do you what do you feel about the overall size of the administration, analyst, operation staff of Coach Rhule and how they put together? It says it's close to 40-ish people now. Like, what are our thoughts on that and the quality of the staff?
Well, Father, I think that it's good. It's really good because again, a lot of those top programs, those big universities, they have a large management system. The Texases, you know, the Ohio States, like we need it because we have so much infrastructure. We have so much going on that that this only helps everybody to delegate it more. We all need to be on, you know, that same page, and having a good director of ops and having all these resources when we're allowed to, because we are such a profitable program, this only helps us down the road. And I really like bringing this business like into our football team.
Yeah, it's interesting that, you know, that Matt Rhule comes in and is like, we need more people. You know, like, it is fascinating that was kind of like a thought, or
because Frost was like, we need less people.
Yeah, you know, and maybe that goes to show, who knows, maybe that means that Frost wanted to have more say, or maybe it's just that, you know, either way, it's just an interesting idea and philosophy there. So yeah, fascinating. I think it's a good thing overall too. And then Nightmare asks, he basically asks, what are our favorite foods? I mean, any pizza. I'm a sucker for any pizza. Besides that, barbecue. Basically any food that you'd have at a Super Bowl party, I'm in.
Hey, I mean, I can't go wrong with like pasta, man, and sushi. Oh, I mean, both of those are just wins. Steak. You can't. I mean, you can't. I'd be remiss if I didn't say steak.
I mean, I'll be honest. I'd have a chili over steak every day of the week, anytime, no matter when.
That's
midsummer,
crazy.
July 15th, chili.
Yes. Give me a ribeye, like any time over that.
And then he asks, would you do any other collabs with other Husker channels? Yes. And we have reached out to quite a few. Yes, we've seen your corn crazed comments, and we have reached out, and we're hopefully gonna do something at some point. It was
just hard with Josh in Germany.
I am in Germany, so doing collabs makes it really tough. And then, who's your favorite Husker all time? Oh man,
it's got to be Sue and Kenny Bell.
Kenny Bell, that's a great answer.
So Kenny Bell I too golf, obviously, golf coach, but I would see him all the time at golf courses in Lincoln in the summer. And to the point where I also worked at a golf course where he'd always be like, oh, it's you again. And we played some holes together. So like as a kid, like that was like the coolest thing of just like seeing Kenny Bell. And I got him to attest my score one time, so I have his autograph. That was pretty lit.
Well, Kenny Bell has that show on Big Ten Network, like the golf show.
I know, for golfing.
Yeah, like linked up with Kenny Bell or something.
So like personally, just as he was just such a cool dude, and then also it's got to be Ndamukong Suh. Like, wow, he's like our one Husker answer. I know he's the one Husker great that's got his name on the stadium like since we pretty much can remember been alive. Obviously, we were alive for like. Yeah, Eric I don't really remember Crouch though. But yes, you can see like 2-year-old me running around with like an Eric Crouch jersey on. But like, you know, so it has to be Sue. Just again, I think the level of like what it meant to be a Husker fan, like for everybody our age, like Sue like we got a glimpse of like understanding of like this is what Nebraska football is about, having like an all-time dominant player. Yeah, and like. Yeah, it made it a whole nother level for me that season, just seeing the Husker passion, like from being like, oh, you know, another 8-9 win to having this like all-time great. It changed a lot of people's minds about Husker football, and like just how important it is to all of us is a lot because of Ndamukong Suh.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously those are great answers. Early on, like in the early 2000s, because I moved to Nebraska in 2001, so I just missed some of the greatness. And so it's been really, sorry guys, it's been downhill since I got here. But early on, the two favorites were probably Zach Taylor, really, and Maurice Purify.
What a goat.
I loved Maurice Purify. He was making plays all over the field and stuff as just a big-bodied receiver for Nebraska. Obviously, like Nate Swift and stuff too. But then, yeah, definitely, I would say probably Amir Abdullah. Besides that,
Amir, baby.
Or I lied. It's Prince Amukamara. Prince Amukamara was so good. So cool. And so fun to watch. Cool. And he went to the NFL and just everything. And he's really involved in Nebraska still. And so, yeah, Prince Amukamara.
I mean, obviously like the Rex Burkhead, Roy Haleu. I think like back to Joe Gans.
Yes.
Like, yeah, like
but besides that, I mean, like, yeah, Cam Taylor-Britt. I mean, you know, there's just so many
Will Compton now.
Oh, Will Compton. Yeah, man. Of course. How could we forget?
Talk about like it's so funny thinking about that 2010 defense of like knowing he was good. Like I remember as a kid, like going to the signing day, like knowing that he was pretty cool, but like still being like, oh, it's just Will Compton. Like he's like, I never remember seeing it on the field.
No,
I'm so happy that like it changed. So now he's like an all-time GOAT. Retire his jersey on the stadium, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. So there it is, guys. That's the Q&A. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And we have a lot more coming. We had a bunch of Dylan Raiola questions as well. But we're going to do a video about Dylan Raiola here soon. So we thought we'd just save those. And obviously you're going to be hearing a lot more about Jeff Sims and Casey Thompson as well over the next few weeks, heading into spring practice in the spring game coming up basically right around the corner. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Drop your comments down below. We want to hear everything you guys have to say and your favorite Husker memories as well. But as always, guys, I'm Josh. That's Caleb. This is Backseat Sports, and we'll see you next time. Go Big Red,
Go
baby.
Big Red.